Do you see some of that in your students that you have now as well? Perhaps needing to be in touch more with
Yes,
that side?
yes. I see that a lot. I think that's we do try to tell this to students as well, to give them these soft skills. Um, but some of the students really struggle to understand why do they need to do that, because students who go, especially those who go for mechanical engineering, what they really like is more practical side of things, like building something, or the mathematical analytical side of things. And when you are doing an analysis of data, numbers for example, you have to be objective, you can't be subjective. So all our type of research and projects, what we do is all about being objective. We want to have no subjectiveness in anything.
Mm.
But that's because you're dealing with things like numbers, or, oh, this structure, it vibrates. What's the frequency? That's a number. It has no feelings. And suddenly we ask them to, that's why we encourage them, and we have assessment that is mandatorily made in terms of teams. They need to work as a group. And so I said to the students, you don't really need to all be doing the same thing in the team. What you need to do is to work as a team. You need to interact, because that's the whole point, is to put that subjectiveness like on the creative process. If you are designing something, we are the Department of Design and Engineering. If you don't have that subjective side of things, how can you be creative? If you're just objective, you're just making boring stuff probably. So you need to put your own personal experiences, share them across the table, so that you can actually develop something that could be more interesting and competitive. And I feel like I've been too many years not doing that, and then you start being wired in a way that that constrains you. It's a limitation. I'm talking about myself personally. Obviously, I can't talk about other people. Other people might disagree, but certainly for myself, I became too hardwired to the objectiveness of engineering.
Right. I suppose whatever path you go down, though, you're maximizing your potential in one sense, but also limiting yourself in another. Because you could say the same for someone on the opposite side of things, who's very in touch with their feelings, but then has no kind of sense of objective reality or whatever. And I think maybe on our degrees in media, we attract quite creative people, generally speaking, or at least a portion of them are fairly creative. So they maybe have problems with when it comes to writing and referencing correctly and all this stuff, because it's not wishy-washy and artsy-fartsy enough for them. Do you know what I mean? And maybe, across the road at the Arts University, it could be even worse for some. And I mean, maybe I shouldn't say the word worse, because it's not necessarily about better or worse, I don't think, but it's just
I have
differences.
I have an experience many years ago. There was an exhibition in architecture, and so the university where I was the faculty where I studied was an engineering faculty, but they decided to create architecture as well, because they were saying that other faculties of architecture, they were too artsy and they didn't have the engineering understanding of stuff. What I liked about that was also an epiphany for me in terms of the creative process. And I realized we as universities, sometimes we take the risk to be constraining a lot the creative side of things. And the reason why I noticed that, because the exhibition was very well laid out. It was from the first year to following down to the last year of studies. So you have these models made by students, cardboard models and stuff like that. And what you saw was this: the first year models were all different from one another. From my perspective, because I'm not an architect, to the final year student models, they all look the same to me. They follow the same trends, the same fashion, the same line, same type of stuff because they've been constrained to what's been current and done today, what is most fashionable, probably. I don't know if this is a good word. So I just wondered if we are not constraining too much the creative process because of that. You just could see it. It was,
I think there's an element of that, or the risk of that in all education, isn't there? Especially as we test students with the same assessment brief at the end and the same people doing the marking at the end. I think there's a risk to that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that.